glad you're here with us today. Glad you're here with us today. Look, we're diving straight into one of the oldest, most complex, and honestly, most tragic disputes in modern history, the Israel-Gaza conflict. Now, we hear about this constantly in the daily headlines, right? But in this explainer, we're taking a step back. We're going to look objectively at the foundational roots of the issue so we can truly understand the history behind the headlines. Because let's face it, whenever we turn on the news, the exact same fundamental question always hits us. Where did all of this actually begin? How on earth did we get here? It's completely natural and incredibly validating to want clear, unbiased context to make sense of it all. If you want to understand the reality on the ground today, you really have to go back to the very beginning. Okay, let's dive into this outline. We'll start with 1, the roots of the conflict, then move chronologically through 2, 1948, partition and war, 3, 1967, the Six-Day War, and 4, Gaza and Hamas. Finally, we'll weigh 5, 2 deeply held perspectives, ending with 6, a battle for survival. It's a balanced, chronological journey to help us tackle the modern situation. Starting off with Section 1, the roots of the conflict. So, looking right here, you'll see the pin on Jerusalem. We're talking about one single, relatively small piece of land that holds incredibly deep historical and religious significance for 3 major world religions: Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. It's this deep, shared heritage that really sets the stage for exactly why this territory is so fiercely contested. Going back to the late 19th century, severe persecution of Jewish people in Europe birthed what became known as the Zionism movement. The goal here was to create a safe Jewish homeland in their ancestral land. Fast forward a bit, past World War I, the Ottoman Empire falls, the British take control of Palestine, and during this British mandate, Jewish migration increases significantly. As you can imagine, this shift created some undeniable, heavy tension between the local Arab Palestinian population and the arriving Jewish immigrants. Let's move to and see how this builds in Section 2, 1948, Partitions and War. With violence escalating on the ground, the United Nations actually stepped in with a partition plan in 1947. The idea? Divide Palestine into 2 parts, an independent Jewish state and an independent Arab state. Now, objectively, the historical record shows that Jewish leaders accepted this proposal while Arab leaders rejected it. So, the crucial point is what happened next. May 14, 1948, Israel declares independence. Literally the very next day, surrounding Arab nations attack. Israel ultimately wins that war and captures more land. But look at this staggering number, 750,000. During this chaos, roughly 750,000 Palestinians fled or were forced from their homes. For Palestinians, this is a profound historical tragedy they call the Nakba, which translates to the catastrophe. Which brings us to a massive turning point. Section 3, 1967, the Six-Day War. 6. Just 6 days. That is the number of days it took for this entire conflict to fundamentally shift. In less than a week of intense fighting, Israel defeated the combined forces of Egypt, Jordan, and Syria. It was an astonishingly brief war that completely redrew the map of the region practically overnight. Because of those 6 days, Israel captured the Gaza Strip, which was previously controlled by Egypt, along with the West Bank and East Jerusalem. And honestly, the ongoing dispute over these exact newly captured territories, that remains the absolute core of the conflict we are seeing today. Now let's zoom in on the modern era in Section 4, Gaza and Hamas. And this brilliantly illustrates the rapid modern escalation we've seen in Gaza. Back in 1987, the militant and political group Hamas was formed, and their initial charter openly aimed for the destruction of Israel. Jump to 2005, and Israel unilaterally pulls its army out and dismantles its settlements inside Gaza, though they kept strict control over the borders. Then, in 2007, Hamas takes full political and military control after fighting a rival Palestinian faction. The immediate consequence of that 2007 Hamas takeover is critical to understand. Right after Hamas assumed power, both Israel and Egypt imposed a strict blockade on Gaza. We're talking severe restrictions on the movement of people and goods, which effectively crippled Gaza's economy and dramatically impacted the day-to-day living conditions of the civilians there. This leads us to Section 5, 2 deeply held perspectives. Look, this conflict simply cannot be explained by taking a side and labeling one a hero and the other a villain. It's not a movie. Both sides have incredibly deep, genuinely felt arguments. To truly grasp the reality on the ground, We absolutely have to step back and weigh these perspectives equally and impartially. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how clearly it lays out the divide. On one hand, you have the Israeli perspective. Israel argues that neighboring groups actively seek its destruction, giving them an absolute right to defend their citizens from terrorism and ensure their survival. Plus, they cite a deep historical right to a sovereign Jewish state, especially after centuries of horrific persecution globally. On the flip side, the Palestinian perspective is just as deeply rooted. Palestinians emphasize that this exact land was their home for generations. They argue fiercely against their forced displacement and the ongoing denial of a sovereign state. They point to a severe human rights crisis, highlighting that civilians in Gaza are suffering without basic necessities because of the blockade. To them, there is just no peace without freedom and equality.
Finally, we reach our concluding thought in Section 6, a battle for survival.
This is not just a fight over land. It is a battle for survival, identity, and dignity. That really hits the nail on the head, doesn't it? Ultimately, as long as both sides fail to recognize each other's basic right to exist and fail to truly understand each other's historical and present pain, bringing peace to this historic region is going to remain incredibly difficult. So the question remains, how do you even begin to bridge a divide when both sides believe they are fighting for their very existence? Thank you for joining me on this explainer today, and keep seeking